Spring 1977. Jimmy Carter is a few months into his presidency. He ran on a promise to restore decency to a country rocked by Vietnam, Watergate, and whatever this is. And even though he lacks charisma, there's a mood of cautious optimism. That mood really kicks into high gear with the release of a new movie. Star Wars was directed by another uncharismatic man, George Lucas. Lucas was written off by everyone, friends, studio executives, even the actors he cast in the film.
I said to George, you can type this stuff, but you can't say it.
But Lucas wasn't making it for them. He was making it for people like him. Idealistic, small-town kids. Kids that Hollywood had forgotten about. Kids who wanted to believe in something. Anything. So Lucas gave them Jedi Knights, the Force, lightsabers, Darth Vader, the Death Star, a golden man from England and his best friend, a dustbin. Life was never quite the same after Star Wars hit cinemas in 1977. The cultural impact outlasted Carter's single term of office, and only really tailed off 40 years later, during another ill-fated one-term presidency.
May the Fourth be with you. Always.
What we're left with now is a constant stream of spin-offs, written by an unholy alliance of professional fans and studio accountants. But in this video, we're going back to that brief moment nearly 50 years ago, when Star Wars was still a new thing. And how better to capture that feeling than by watching The Making of Star Wars, a television special that aired a whole 4 months after the film came out. Despite the delay, America was still in the grip of Star Wars fever, as we can see in these opening shots. Only 10 years before, a crowd of this size would have been cheering astronauts. But now they're here to see this bell end. True to form, 3PO spoils the moment by bitching at the only person who ever loved him.
R2-D2, hurry up! Everyone's waiting for you.
Other than reminding us how genuinely toxic he is, this skit introduces the concept behind the special. It's not just any old making of. No, this is Star Wars as told by the droids. And they spend the rest of the special queuing up clips from the film in what looks like an unused set from Series 15 of Doctor Who. As corny as this gets, it's true to George Lucas's original intent, which was that the droids were the Greek chorus of the movie. But there's also an interesting tension here, because while the droids are commenting on the events of the film as though they lived through them, they're also talking about the production of the film, with 3PO running his mouth at the overworked British set movers.
Well, it's also boring, waiting around for the technicians and the director to get everything ready.
So what are we supposed to believe here? That these are fictional characters? Or that 3PO and R2 are actually starving artistes, scraping a living as spear carriers on the West End stage before Lucas plucked them from obscurity? Of course, we never find out. But Dave Filoni is aware of the potentially devastating implications this holds for the canon, and it'll all be explained in Gonk, a limited series only on Disney+, the home of Star Wars and associated intellectual properties. Anyway, it's not just the gruesome twosome. We also have the narrator, who treats the film with the solemnity of a presidential inauguration.
As the two heroes of Star Wars make their indelible impressions on the ground reserved for Movieland's legends, the world resounds with the fact that Star Wars itself has become a full-fledged social phenomenon. It has become more than just a movie.
The man behind the mic was William Conrad, aka Cannon, the TV detective whose gimmick was that he was morbidly obese.
Look at you. You're fat.
Wow, great smashing. The three of them take us through the events of the film scene by scene, including the bit where Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan. If a scene like that was included in a making-of special these days, you'd have dozens of fans and millions of bots out for blood. But back then nobody cared, because none of this stuff had the significance that it would eventually accrue. I'm sure nobody even noticed when William Conrad completely rewrote Han Solo's origin story.
Luke and old Ben must ally themselves with a mercenary space pirate.
The special truly is a relic from a better time, when movies were just a bit of fun, and not the cornerstone of an entire geek industrial complex. Speaking of geeks, here's one, and he's even doing the Virgin Walk. Yes, it's George Lucas, 33 going on 17, the only man who looked better with neck wattle. Here his contribution is limited to some brief, self-effacing comments about the film.
Success is that it's a positive film, it has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people...
See, Lucas gets it. Star Wars is meant to be fun. Now, in the background of this shot, notice the size differential between that gumball machine and the photo of Lucas's wife Marcia. They would divorce 6 years later, by the way. More interesting than Lucas are the interviews with the 3 leading actors. First up, Harrison Ford, the space parrot. Ford is not in his grumpy era yet. In fact, he's clearly smoked the drug marijuana beforehand. How do I know? Well, see what you think.
Chewbacca. Chewbacca is the Wookiee. He's 200 years old. And I don't know if this ever comes out in the picture, but he is 200 years old.
Okay, man. Very cool, but no, I don't want to listen to the intro Baker Street slowed down by 2000%. I actually have work in the morning. Next is Carrie Fisher. She's also smoked the drug marijuana beforehand, but as the scion of a showbiz family, her segment is media-friendly and coherent.
We had a good time. When we did the swing across, it would have been fun if we'd been allowed to do it a second time. But it was like doing the upside-down roller coaster. We did it one time, and it was scary. And then if we'd gotten to do it again, it would have been fun.
As for Mark Hamill, he doesn't show up for 40 minutes, but when he does, he's surrounded by lighting gear, as opposed to being in an arcade or sitting next to a bunch of yachts, because they thought he would be the breakout star. So unlike the other two, he gets to talk about the literary significance of Star Wars.
He's that classic character in literature that doesn't want to stay on the farm, that wants to see what's beyond, and, you know, get off the farm and go have a little adventure.
Although they didn't do him any favours by making him look like Klaus Kinski. There are some nice clips in the special of the trio pissing around like smart-arse teenagers. This was a difficult shoot, but it's obvious that Ford, Fisher and Hamill enjoyed themselves.
Cut it. And.
The mic was in frame.
The mic was in picture.
The same can't be said of the film's acting heavyweight, Sir Alec Guinness. Guinness's association with Star Wars is one of those things that viewers take totally for granted nowadays. But in 1977, it was a bizarre choice for a man who has his own Wikipedia page for award wins and nominations. He usually explained his involvement by referring to the profit-sharing deal he made with Lucas, which must have come in pretty handy, given his career had a slump in the mid-70s, including the worst ever portrayal of Adolf Hitler.
You'll pay for this with your blood. I'll have you hanged, shot, quartered. I'll...
All things considered, you'd think the bugger would show a bit of gratitude, but he's not that good an actor. In fact, you can tell the exact moment he realises he's stitched Lucas right up. Let's be honest though, nobody was watching this to see Alec Guinness, and they probably didn't care much about no-names like Harrison Ford either. Where a documentary like this lives or dies is in the quality of its making-of footage. And if there's one thing this special has in spades, it's bearded men blowing up Airfix models again and again and again. Because the special is structured chronologically, we begin with a look at the location filming in Tunisia. Much of this is passed into Hollywood legend. For example, the crew encountered fierce weather that blew some of the sets hundreds of miles into the desert. Libyan border patrols mistook the Jawa sandcrawler for a Tunisian tank and nearly launched a war. And Anthony Daniels suffered injuries after spending a whole day in a 3PO costume, so it wasn't all bad. As you'd expect, hardly any of this makes it to the special. What we do get is a sense of the grunt work of shooting a movie. This is proper filmmaking. Roddy-faced blokes lugging props about. It makes you proud to be British, seeing these staunch lads with their jumpers on in the beating sun. The BO is strong with these ones. That looks fun, doesn't it? Go on, son, have another spin. I'm sure that's nothing to worry about. Oh look, there's Alec Guinness with his face tripping him. I bet that was a surprise for the crew. From Tunisia we moved to Elstree Studios in London, where Lucas had a nervous breakdown. Here he is getting called a nonce by Anthony Daniels.
Nonce?
This is also where we get the behind the scenes special effects footage, which is surely what most viewers were waiting for. Some of the effects are in the grand tradition of stop motion animation, like these chess pieces, and it's frankly amazing that Disney haven't given these lads a proper backstory yet. Others are more complicated, like the motion controlled computers used to film the spaceship models. I've read a lot about these computers, but I've never seen them in action until watching this special. They're almost cinematic in themselves, like the random bits of junk that clutter the background in the film. But what's notable for me is that this footage doesn't take away from the magic of Star Wars. There's genuine craft and skill behind these effects, the sense of professionals at work. It would take me a million years to even understand a tenth of what these lads have forgotten. Whereas CGI? Well, anyone with a hacked Adobe account can create a halfway convincing Gungan. See? There are a few surprising omissions from the special effects footage. No cantina, which is gutting, as it's always a joy to get a closer look at the puppets. Not much on Vader either, although that may have been a canny bit of brand management. Who could take the Dark Lord of the Sith seriously after hearing his actual voice?
But don't keep staring at me as if I were a freak. And let me tell you, I'm a man like any other man. Yes, I am, and I can prove it. Do you hear? Prove it!
But we do of course get a proper rundown of the Death Star battle, and I saw something here that blew my mind. I've seen Star Wars upwards of 10 times and never noticed this. This guy, here, I thought he was just some extra, but here we get a proper look at him. And it turns out to be none other than Shane, Doctor Strangelove, Thunderbirds, The Gunfighters, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, The Spy Who Loved Me, Superman 2, Batman Begins, Rimmer. Just me then? Well, here's more slow motion footage of exploding fiberglass for the rest of you. This is what you pigs want, isn't it?
Oh, my poor circuits. It's all so very complicated. I don't see how they ever put all this together.
Maybe you should have been paying attention to the last 40 minutes then, you bell end. Because the special was completed after the release of Star Wars, the film ends with a look at the reaction to the film. And since it was 1977, that means disco dancing. Cheeky one you are. This lad had 10 seconds on a making of special and he gave it everything. Fair play to him. Fair play. And it wouldn't be Star Wars without merchandise. Licensed tat is how Lucas actually made his fortune. But these scenes inside the toy factory are quite traumatising. Fully shorn Chewbacca's, 3PO heads rotating on a crucifix. Who directed this? Alejandro Jodorowsky? Well, no he didn't, but he could have. Couldn't he? By this point in the film, Star Wars fever has infected even William Conrad, who does the full Troy McClure here.
And what about sequels?
As daft as he sounds, it is a fair question. What about sequels? Years later, George Lucas claimed that he always had a plan for 9 episodes. But listen to everyone in this special, and it's clear they didn't have much in the holster.
We are working on story material that will develop into potentially 1 or more motion pictures that will use the same characters. I like to consider them different adventures rather than direct sequels.
Carrie Fisher gets closer than anyone else.
I heard that they were probably going to have an ice planet and a tropical planet.
Then there's the big question on everyone's lips. Not will Darth Vader return, not will Luke continue his Jedi training, but rather...
to be answered. Like what about the future of the princess?
And who she is going to end up with is still anybody's guess.
Do you think everyone in 1977 was Team Luke or Team Han? Were there sharp words in the playground over who would be the more courtly suitor for the princess? I wasn't there, so I don't know. But it does suggest that nobody, not even Lucas, was thinking of Star Wars as the tragedy of Darth Vader, or whatever. It was all just a laugh. For example, here's Harrison talking about how big Chewbacca's cock is. Before we finish, let's take a quick look at another promo for the film, which again gives us an insight into Star Wars before it became its own monoculture. In July 1977, 2 months after the film went on release, the three leads appeared on The Mike Douglas Show. Because Mike was heavily on tramadol here, he makes the weird and wonderful sound dull and dutiful.
That talks, and one named R2-D2, who just beeps and clicks. It has the fearsome stormtroopers of a galactic empire and a 100-year-old Wookiee.
Chewbacca is 200 years old, idiot.
In addition to all that, the movie
To start off, Mike brings out Carrie Fisher, and his opening lines go, "This is absolutely fine."
Forgive me for just staring at you, but I know your mom and I know your dad well. And when somebody looks at an offspring for the first time, they say,
"Why are you adjusting your trousers there, Mike?" Fair play to Carrie, she doesn't let him off the hook entirely.
Marvelous.
And the Wookiee, by the way, is 200 years old.
200 years old?
Mike's other guest here tries to join in with a joke and gets dinged.
The last report I got was that it's...
If you're wondering who this is, by the way, it's none other than John Boy Walton from The Waltons. His name is Richard Thomas, and if you can guess which Austin Powers joke I'm going to cut in here, you're very smart. Well done. This interview would mark something of a turning point in Thomas's career. As he waits for Carrie to wrap up her anecdote, it's hard not to wonder, him being an actor of a certain age and disposition, did he get a shot at Star Wars? Was he ever in the room with Lucas? Was his name ever on a callback sheet? This is the silence of a man who could have been Luke Skywalker. If it wasn't for, while he's stewing, Carrie just talks bollocks.
Girl, she just swing across, shoots stormtroopers, hangs around with Wookiees and Jawas and sand people.
And after a commercial break, Mike can't resist another cheeky gag at her expense.
Nobody will ever know what we were doing while the commercials were on, and if I told them, they wouldn't believe it.
Interestingly, there was a 36-year age gap between these two. John Boy is still with us, but he's been banished to the chair behind Mike. It's very much the cuck chair during this portion of the interview, as we welcome Harrison and Mark onto the stage. Real men, with real success to their name. Mike's patter here is dreadful.
Okay, did you bring a note from the teacher? From home? You were late for class.
Harrison completely ignores it.
Did you hear that?
All those years on daytime, playing to an audience of Valium-addled housewives, has killed whatever natural charm Mike once had. And then it's on with the hard work of PR. While Harrison talks up the movie and Mark mugs at the audience, John Boy attempts to join in, and once more gets dinged by Mike. This may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, the moment that completely changed the course of Thomas's career. Mike's imperious disregard for his guest had repercussions he could never have imagined. Because 1977 was the year that Thomas quit the Waltons, the show that made him a big fish in a small pond. It may have been a decision made in a fit of pique, but understandable. He was smarting from the humiliation heaped upon him, hungry to prove that he could stand shoulder to shoulder with these Hollywood upstarts. That might have looked like the act of a deeply insecure man, but it paid off when, 3 years later, Thomas took the lead role in Battle Beyond the Stars, a film that nearly dethroned Empire Strikes Back as the biggest blockbuster of 1980. It only missed out by $530 million. Anyway, that's enough of the psychodrama. Let's wrap things up and give the last word to 3PO, who was, after all, the bard of Star Wars.
Where will it all end? Perhaps R2, it will never end.
You weren't wrong there, my friend. A chilling prophecy of things to come.